Commence primary ignition.
I'm just not the hero type, clearly.
What a piece of junk.
Enterprise, this is the captain.
I got a bad feeling about this.
It's all part of the plan.
Engage.
Welcome back to Podcast 2 for 1. I'm your host, Donovan Thompson, with my co-host,
Daniel Wingfield.
and today is episode 142 of Podcast 2 for 1. Now, Daniel, if you reverse that, 142, it is 2 for 1.
Wow.
Does that feel good? Does that feel good?
That does feel good. It probably doesn't feel as good as 2-for-1 wheel feel.
It won't.
Because that's
not
like,
at all. Not at
I
all.
mean, like, yeah.
I still have a mind that we should maybe quit at 2 for 1. Like there's part of me that if we get that far and we're feeling a little, like we're not feeling great anymore, like, let's call it 2 for 1. But we probably will not. But why also it's great, Daniel, that we're at 142 is because in about 4 or 5 days, we are celebrating our 3rd year anniversary of 2 for 1 Studios / Podcast 2 for 1. So, we're kind of in that leeway part. I think we'll have this episode come out and we'll have the anniversary, and then we'll have episode 143 come out after that. But we are basically in our 3-year anniversary of Podcast 2 for 1.
Crazy. I mean, it really does. Obviously COVID makes everything feel like longer ago than it is right now, especially the things that kind of happened in like the early 2020s.
Yeah.
But it really does feel like a decade ago setting up those mics on that table in the upstairs of Agency 501.
I kind of feel the
recording those
opposite.
first podcasts.
I do feel like COVID took 20 years, but then I also feel like it was just like last week that we were in the office.
Sure.
Me, and I think our first video one was, it ends with me standing on the chair during the light.
Was it The Witcher, I think? I think it was The Witcher.
Yeah, it was our first video on the episode, I don't know, 7 or 8 or 9 or something.
Yeah.
But now 3 years ago, which is also cool because 3, the number 3, it is the 30th movie in the MCU. Another 3 there. The 30th movie in the MCU is Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. And yes, viewers, we are talking Ryan Coogler's sequel to the smash 2018 hit Black Panther. Of course, if you didn't know, and you probably didn't, we are sponsored by Kapow Comics, located at 4047 East Kill Avenue in Sherwood, Arkansas. There they have comic books, collectibles, graphic novels, and of course, special guest appearances throughout the year. And if you haven't, please subscribe to our channel, youtube.com/2for1 Studios, the best place to consume the content. Of course, we are on all podcast services like Apple TV, Google Podcasts, Spotify. I'm sure there's others that we're on that I don't even know about.
Did you say Apple TV?
Did I say that? Yeah.
You may have said Apple TV.
Apple
Not yet,
Podcasts.
but we will be soon.
Not
this
yet.
time
Yeah,
next
Apple.
year.
There you go. This time next year. Anyway, Daniel, episode 142, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Before the show started, we were talking a little bit about my experience watching it. I had a great theater experience. And so, that was in check. I was looking forward to the movie for a while now, like we all have been. And we've been talking about it in great detail. Of course, there's been rumors and speculations about who's Black Panther, who's going to be in the after credit sequence, all these things, right? And, of course, in some ways disappointed. But then when it comes down to the movie, I think for me, I have a lot of conflicting thoughts on it. I think my brother, he texted our group and was like, he didn't like it at all. He said that Marvel basically shit the bed in it. And I was like, okay, as I'm seeing it Saturday. And when I walked out, my initial response was, I don't think it's a bad movie. I just don't think it's the movie that I would have made. And I think there are structural issues. I think there are plot things that don't really work as great as they could have. But I just think, again, it kind of goes back to the idea of T'Challa being recast and all these kind of things, which, again, that's another conversation. But I'm trying to look at the movie as it is. Like, they made these decisions, and now I got to accept the movie that they're making. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know yet how I feel. And there's, again, we'll dive more into it, but it's just not what I would have done. I would have made other narrative choices. I don't think it's a bad movie, though. I think that the performances are strong. I think some of the cinematography is pretty great. It feels like a movie. It looks like a movie. I think here's an interesting thing I thought about yesterday. It's like, I think Black Panther: Wakanda Forever is a better, well-made movie than Black Adam. across the board.
Mm,
I think it's better. Almost everything. Almost everything.
sure.
But I think I enjoy Black Adam more. I think I had more fun watching Black Adam, and part of that too is because Black Adam's coming from a property that's kind of disappointed me, and Black Panther's coming from a one of the best solo movies in the MCU and one of the best
Mm,
characters in the MCU. Obviously, again, there's some things like that's out of their control, the passing of Chadwick Boseman, but I think
right.
overall I enjoyed. I don't know if Black Panther's in my top 10 of the year. Black Adam is just because I enjoyed it. Like I had fun with it. Even though I still have a lot of problems with that movie. Check our previous podcast out for that. But I think, I don't know. I wanted something different, a different flavor of ice cream than what they gave me. But I'll go more into that after I hear your initial reaction to it.
Yeah, Wakanda Forever, it does some things well, I think, and in other ways, it's not the strongest, right? I think they were in an impossible situation because I think either way, whether they recasted T'Challa or not, there was going to be people that had issues with it, right? Because I mean, I think
Yeah.
I hear you, and I think I understand the desire to pass on that mantle to someone else, and even I understand even the arguments that, like, as amazing as Chadwick is, like, the Black Panther is bigger than one actor, and but at the same time, I can't imagine a version of this movie that came out with a different T'Challa that just doesn't feel right, and then you're stuck with a character like you're stuck. I think it was an impossible situation. So I think the route that they took, um, I think like like having it open with T'Challa dying off screen, which of course, how else would you do it? But like that may have not have been the route I would take, but I do. They were able to find some real emotion, right? This movie's a lot about
Sure.
grief,
I agree.
and I think that the movie at certain points really is able to touch in a poignant way, in a way that
Sure.
feels like we're handling a serious subject seriously, and that is something that has been sorely missed in recent MCU anything. Especially when you think of the past recent movies like Thor and Doctor Strange,
Yeah.
where it felt like the worlds didn't take themselves seriously at all, and the TV shows have matched that as well over the summer. And so like there's parts of that like I loved, and like when it hit those highs, I was like, I'm on board with this, and I like this, I'm into this. But there was a lot of the rest of the movie that was, for one, bloated. I mean, 2 hours and 40 minutes was a long ass time. And to be fair to them, they told a pretty complicated, like, worldwide plot, in a way. Like it had there was a scale to this film that, that was, cool or impressive or whatever. But I think, all in all, it's a problematic movie. That at the end of the day, I ended up liking. I think, but I think the highs outweighed the lows for me. All in all.
Sure. Yeah, and it's valid. That's the thing. I'm not saying I don't like it. I think it's just the thing. It's one of those things. Like I've got to sit here and remove myself from the movie I wanted to versus the movie I got. The performances, they're pretty great. I mean, like even
Yeah.
Shuri, and I'm gonna say the character name Shuri. Queen Ramonda, M'Baku, Okoye,
Yeah.
Namor. All these people, I think, did fantastic. They
I
did
agree.
fantastic with the words that was written for them, and the performances are all great. I think the music is great. I like the absence of music in the movie. I love
Yeah,
and
the
like even
music.
yeah,
Just to highlight on that while you said it, I think while I was watching this has some of the most distinct music in the MCU. The like just kind of all vocal tracks,
yeah,
or main like vocal kind of like African sounds. It really makes it feel unique, and really makes the whole film stand out from the MCU,
yeah,
because it doesn't just have that classical, orchestral,
yeah,
superhero kind of music. And I think That is music is big for me, and so like that I think is a part of the highs for me is that soundtrack. It was really cool watching like fight scenes to this like non-traditional music for me.
Sure.
I think that those worked really well.
Well, another thing, I again looking at the positives here. I agree with the tone aspect of it. Like it reminded me 100% of the MCU that I wish we were still getting. It reminded me of that, and that's it feels like phase 2 or 3, versus where it's like we're not always cracking a joke, but when we do crack a joke, it's not to undercut a moment or or to like or just to be whatever. Like I hate that shit, and this is like natural humor, like ball-headed demon. Amazing. The whole crowd in the auditorium loved that, which apparently was an improv from him.
That's awesome.
And like that's good humor where it feels like these characters are picking at each other or whatever. It's not just like stupid. Even James Gunn, who I think he's really a funny guy and has a good job of balancing those things. A lot of times he still goes too far. Like he has a joke that just undercuts a moment that ruins like the seriousness of it. There's many of time where there's a version of this movie where when she falls down as Black Panther and lands, and it's supposed to be like a serious moment, like I'm Black Panther. There's another version where every other Marvel movie or every other Marvel TV show would have a joke right then of like superhero landing or something like that, and thank God they didn't do that in this movie. Like that's a benefit. Like they took this, and also it was by nature of, like you said, the movie. This is the theme of this is grief, and how do we process grief? How do we process the losing of a loved one? And then how does that shape us? Like dealing with those kind of things, it almost forces you to be a little more serious in other ways. That way, those moments kind of hit a little harder, right? You got to live in that grief a little bit. You can't just always cracking jokes every second. So I like the tone of it. I think the idea. I said this before Chadwick ever passed away. Black Panther 2, before they ever announced anything, before there was, as I said, Black Panther 2 should be Wakanda versus Atlantis, or in this case, it's Talokan, which is Namor. It should be them. Like it should be two kingdoms fighting each other. I've been saying that for like 5 years. That's when, or since Black Panther 1 came out. This is what it should be.
Sure.
And that's a great idea. You still get the ability to bring in another nation, another culture. And you get to, that's like the awe and the coolness of Black Panther 1 was seeing a part of not even just the MCU, but just something that's different from our world, that's like a new culture and kind of, that's what's cool about that. And so smart move bringing in Namor. And also he's a big character. And it's like, that's something that a lot of fans have been wanting to see. I personally don't give two shits about Namor. I never have. But I think, I think they nailed his traditional characteristics in the comics. I think like his arrogance, he doesn't belong to either world really in a lot of ways. His willingness to be a villain to protect his people, which in some people's eyes would be a hero. Like it's, he's always he's always been that line between, antagonist and protagonist or I should say hero and villain more likely, not the other two. He's always towed that line, which I think is great. I think all those kind of things are great, but then we kind of get into, I don't know. We could obviously have a conversation about, I think it should still be T'Challa, like in the role, right? And like what that movie would have been, but that's not the movie we got, and I have to accept that. So let's just talk about the movie we got, I guess. I think I've thought this was a mistake before they announced it in the comics. It was a mistake. The character of Ironheart. I think that when you have it, okay, obviously there's exceptions, but those exceptions exist because they're done in a positive way, in a way that works, right? I don't like typically copycat characters, and just in general, there's a superhero and there's Iron Man, they have Iron Lad. There's Aquaman, they have Aqua Lad, Aqua Bro. There's Batman, and typically I've never liked Robin. Robin's a little different, so he's not just like Bat Boy, right? Which I think would suck. But it's just a little different, but whatever. Again, some are exceptions. Then you have Iron Man. The only reason Ironheart was created was to kind of basically they were pushing for diversity, which is nothing wrong with that. but people didn't really gravitate towards that character in the comic side of things, and it didn't do very well publication wise at all. And then it's like, okay, well, we're still going to adapt that character, but why? I don't know why. If it wasn't popular in the comics, why adapt her in the MCU? And then if you are, first of all, the actress, I think she's a good actress. I think she did a great job with what she was given. I think she's fine. I think she meshes really well with the characters in the movie, and I think that absolutely there's a could be a place for her in the MCU. But I just think like there's something that is kind of happening. I'm noticing where these legacy characters are being replaced with people who just have all the abilities and none of the struggle that these legacy characters had to get to where they were. Tony Stark had to go through a lot of innovation and trial and error to get to become Iron Man. And he also was a damaged character before he became Iron Man. And he was a damaged character all the way up until he died almost, Now, there's obviously an argument to be made that Riri Williams obviously has a lot of different types of issues than what Tony Stark had, right? She's a really intelligent black female who's had to grow up in a system that doesn't traditionally reward that. That's its own set of problems. But we really don't. We talk about that a little bit, but we don't really see that with her in the movie. We said it in a lot of dialogue, but we don't get to see that. And she's already out of the gate at 16 or whatever she is. She's 19 in the movie. Sorry, she's 19. I think she's like 16 in the comics. Thank God they at least made her 19 in the movies. She's 19 and she's already making armor that's more advanced than than Iron Man 3 Tony or Age of Ultron Tony.
She was making it with parts from
Wakanda. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. She's
using Wakanda 3D printers, which makes it a lot easier.
It does make it easier. You're not wrong. And there's even a thing of yes, even Spider-Man makes his own suit in Spider-Man or in Far From Home, right? But it's also a Spider-Man suit is way less complicated to make than an Iron Man suit, right? But I think there's just something here that it just feels like, I made the argument over She-Hulk that the reason why She-Hulk exists because Bruce had to go through all the shit. That way the next generation doesn't have to go through the shit, right? And that's kind of typically how lineage is passed on, right? Is that like one character has to suffer, or parents do, and the kids don't have to suffer as much because they can either take the wealth, they could take the knowledge of the parents' experience or the pain they experience and turn it into something hopefully more positive. But it's also like we didn't see her relationship with Tony Stark. She's just someone that can also do this. I still think there's even problems with the She-Hulk thing. We're looking back on her now after a soured finale. But I still, because her arc didn't ever really go where it should have went, in my opinion, with what they set up, because she can just erase whatever. So that kind of makes me backtrack what I said with him, because she actually didn't learn anything from her show, not really. And I feel like Riri also, she's a plot device, which I actually appreciated because I was afraid she was just going to be some other random thing. I'm actually glad that she was interwoven to the plot where it almost makes a little more sense of why she's there. I was surprised. But anyway, I just have a lot of mixed feelings on that. I'm not a fan of the character to begin with. And I just think why are we bringing in other Iron Man characters that people don't really like in the comics, like the majority don't?
That's very clear because the MCU has a very different demographic than the comics MCU. Yeah, the comics MCU is primarily white males. So yeah, it makes sense.
But why don't they give Tony's daughter, make her? But if you're going to change, I mean, you can change things. It's okay to change things and keep the spirit. We know that. Why not make Tony's daughter Iron Man? Why? And then
you're right. I mean, obviously,
and then why not give Rhodey his time to be Iron Man? Like Rhodey, we have Armor Wars coming up next.
I think why? For me, it's marketing because they're trying to attract other demographics to the MCU that they traditionally haven't gotten.
I know why they're doing it. I just don't agree with why they're doing it because it doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like it's servicing the narrative. It's like it's servicing the dollar, which I get it. You
Correct.
have to do both. You have to do the dollar one to get to the narrative one. I get that. Like I get that, but like
But at this
it
point,
just
the MCU doesn't have any issue pulling in money. I feel like, too. I think,
that's the thing. It
you're right.
doesn't.
But they want
So
more. But they want more because there are certain demographics they still haven't hit with completely. You know what I mean? And they're trying to specifically target those because Disney will not be happy until every age and demographic and race has a favorite MCU superhero. I mean, that's just the nature
yeah.
of Disney. Disney wants every fan there is. They want to appeal to everyone, not just to some people. And
Does
I
that
think,
make sense what I'm
yeah,
saying though? I mean, I
yeah,
feel
it
like,
does, and I agree. I mean, I think it's in line with the same decisions that Disney has been making since the end of Phase 3, I guess, or the Infinity Saga, where everything feels like it's trying to be culturally relevant and appeal to. I don't know. It does feel like they are trying to appeal to kind of the zeitgeist's opinion of certain things, and that to me again just feels like they're trying to make money. They're trying to stay popular. They're trying to be seen a certain way in popular culture. Um, and I agree with you. It is a little bit, I guess, annoying, but at the same time, I do get it that hey, we've got this like young, spunky black teenager who we can, you know, attract a whole different audience that has never really been into the MCU ever before. You know what I mean? That makes sense from a marketing standpoint. Um, and I agree. Like I said, like MCU seems to be making more marketing decisions than they do narrative decisions as of late, and that sucks. But I also agree with you that I think they did a decent job integrating her. I say like she wasn't. I mean, she did not stand out, right? Like to me, like it's like she didn't get in the way of the plot, and that was good enough for me. I guess like
yeah,
is
I
what I
do
would
feel
say.
like I would kind of agree with that. And like, hey, I actually think her armor looks pretty cool when she
Yeah,
at the very end. It's
and
cool.
one
But
I'm sure she'll show up in Armor Wars in some capacity. I don't expect her to be the main focus of that, or to even. I mean, I don't know if she's necessarily going to be the next Tony Stark or whatever. How that will work, but like, um, the MCU wants to introduce like 4 characters per IP, like per IP outing. It seems like, and um, yeah, like I said, I think I'm sure that wasn't necessarily I'm blanking on his name, the director, Ryan Coogler's decision. I'm sure that was a mandate. Hey, you have to introduce Ironheart, as a part of this. And like I said, I think they did a decent job. And um, like it didn't feel shoehorned. It felt like they found a way to make it feel like relatively natural to get her
somewhat,
in.
yeah.
And she didn't get in it didn't feel like they ever like took focus away from what we should be thinking or talking about to focus on her. She was there, but she was always kind of like in the wings narratively and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
I agree with that, but I almost think that's almost its own set of problems. Like you bring in the character and you're not giving them like, and that's the thing too. There was never a moment in this movie, which I want to get into some of the other plot specifics here in a second. I'm going to skip around for a minute, but there was never a moment in the movie where I was just like, fuck yeah. There was never, I think they hit the emotional beats of grief and sorrow pretty damn good. But I
Yeah,
never felt I never felt the joy or the cool factor of a character or doing something cool or I never felt this is the extreme version of this. I never felt Cat picking up the hammer in the thing. Even with
sure.
even I don't want to skip too far. Even with Shuri becoming Black Panther, I never felt the build up properly in terms of like the reveal, all that kind of stuff. It felt like it kind of lacked some of that build up to me in terms of like just music and everything else. And then like
Yeah,
it's also interesting too is like she it's it almost undercuts a little bit the heroism of it, which is I not disagree with, but the heroism of it all when she's Black Panther, but then she's followed by we're doing this because I said so, because it's out of revenge, which is interesting. And I think that's like,
Yeah.
oh, that's so, that's, I can see where the story's going. I can see those kind of things. And and what's also interesting is her armor is a mix between T'Challa's and Killmonger's, right? It's the gold and the silver because she's a mix of
Yeah.
both. But I don't know. Okay. Again, I'm skipping around. I never felt that's badass. Like, I mean, Okoye had some
Yeah.
cool stuff in it. I didn't feel like the action was just that great. And I think the action was kind of subpar compared to like Black Panther 1.
Well, and I felt like I did feel COVID in this movie several times. Like when key moments are happening in like kind of cramped rooms between characters, that's never like a cinematographer director is like, oh yeah, we'll shoot this really beautiful conversation between Shuri and Namor or Namor in this like cramped room with painted walls, or like Shuri, we first see Shuri being Black Panther with one other person in the room in this white room. I feel like there was just several times where it just felt like, well, they would have probably done this differently had they not had COVID on them. Like if they could have had these bigger moments happen. And I think that doesn't excuse what I think, I agree with your point that like this doesn't necessarily have a great kind of fist pumpy moment for any of the characters. Like it doesn't have like the moment where they find the way to win or the will to win, and it being kind of a courageous moment or like a beautiful moment. In fact, like kind of the most moment of that is like Shuri blowing up Namor. But she does that and like she's about to kill him, right? Like that's like she does that out of like a vengeful, kind of spirit. So like even like what would be kind of the moment of like climax of defeating the antagonist. What's interesting, and I think I agree with you, this is interesting because it's different, because it also feels a little bit more realistic, is that moment at first is like one of like darkness, right? She's like, I just blew you up and like like at first I'm like, is he dead already? Like he's like needs water and she like burned off his back. I mean, I don't know. That seems permanent. I don't know. He's at least gonna have some scars. But like, and at that moment she like puts the thing in his neck and she's about to kill him or whatever. And then she has that moment with her mom. And so I do think like I agree with you, and I do typically like my superhero movies to have a fuck yeah moment, right?
Yeah, you want the Super Saiyan moment.
I do think that this matches the tone of this movie. I do think that maybe this is better for a movie that's mainly about grief. In getting to the end, the way the movie ends, for one, I thought was very bold and like surprising that they would end in such a personal kind of quiet moment instead of maybe something trying to spurn on what's next. And I just think I don't know. I hear what you're saying, but at the same time, I feel like it works for what this movie was trying to do.
Well, I think part of the problem too is having Shuri as the Black Panther. I think if you had and I'm not saying you should have done this, but I think almost any of those other characters that I can see the script right now on paper. That moment looks pretty cool. Wakanda Forever and a big explosion happened. That's a pretty cool idea. You're using the title of the movie also to do a one-liner. There's a lot of different threads there that I respect. Yeah. But Shuri Letitia Wright, I think it's her name, Letitia Wright. Letitia Wright, sorry. She don't have the cool factor. She don't have Chadwick Boseman's badassery or M'Baku or Okoye's or even Queen Ramonda. If any of those, or even the is it Lupita Nyong'o or what's her name? It's she was even her. I feel like all of them could have had that. Shuri was never a badass,
to me that's okay. I guess what I'm trying to say is that this moment isn't badass, and that's right for the movie, because the movie isn't trying to say it's badass to kill Namor, which she was basically trying to do in that moment. It's not. It's supposed to be a bittersweet moment of like she wins, but at what she's about to win, but at what cost? Like if she follows through with that moment, it's a moment.
I see what you're saying.
Kill you.
I see what you're saying, but I just think there's room in that moment for both. That's more of a directing thing. It's more of a whatever thing.
Yeah.
But I
And
again,
to even to speak to Letitia Wright, I was not a huge fan of her being the Black Panther. I don't personally, I don't think she'll be the Black Panther very long.
I don't
It
I don't
doesn't,
think so
even the
either.
movie doesn't seem to indicate like that may change soon. But and also just it wouldn't. I feel like her as a character would probably give it up after having kind of completed this arc in a way.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't know. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I keep retconning all these movies or keep having ideas to how to make all these movies better, and none of them pan out. I kept thinking, based on the rumors, that Doctor Doom was going to be in the after credit scene. All this it was not in the
oh
movie.
yeah,
But that was a
I
big
forgot
thing, was
about
that
that.
he's going to appear in the last after credit scene. We only had one mid credit scene. Um, but
Yeah,
we'll talk about that in a second. Let's kind of back up a little bit. So, okay, what's a couple interesting things? I love the opening with like Queen Ramonda at the UN basically being like, almost like at a hearing, but then like flipping it on them and being like, look, you
that
guys
was
are
cool.
literally trying to fuck us, but we're not stupid. And like
Yeah,
basically telling the whole world, don't fuck with us. I love that. Like that stuff
that was
is
cool.
fantastic. I love
Yes.
that. And I like how I like that we bring it is kind of weird too. It's like every sequel it feels like you're just all movies, like if there's a supporting character that even was remotely good or whatever, they have to always bring back that supporting character in every subsequent sequel. And I'm always like, you don't though. Like it makes the world feel smaller when you're bringing back.
Mm.
Oh, it's these group of characters always are on shenanigans together. It's like it's which I'm talking about. What's his name? It's Char or God dang, Bilbo,
Oh, Martin Freeman's character.
Martin
Yeah, yeah,
Freeman. Like I like it. Don't get me wrong, I really like him. I'm glad
he's
he's in
fine.
it, but also it kind of feels like sometimes people just like I would almost rather him be in a different movie than being Black Panther 2
I
again.
agree. I agree.
Um, but
Didn't
I
he
thought it
show up in
was
one of the TV shows? Or am I?
well, he was in Civil War, which is his first outing, which was also Black Panther was in there,
Well,
right?
he
So
was there because of yeah.
yeah. So I like him in it. I like the idea of like Val and him having a relationship, I guess married previously, which is cool. And we kind of see obviously some of her machinations of like going through and like becoming director of the CIA, and you kind of see where
Yeah.
the Thunderbolts might be going. But it feels like that thread, even though her suspicions of him are present throughout the movie, I feel like that kind of almost like the Wakanda versus the rest of the world falls apart. It doesn't really keep going, and it's more like Wakanda versus Talocan, which is I get it. That's a lot of things to juggle, but we kind of lose like Wakanda's response to the world. Like Black Panther kind of ended with like we're going to open up the borders and let the world do its thing. And it kind of like it started that conversation, but it never really went with there that conversation because it was like, what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It felt like they didn't really service that like they should have.
Mm.
Um, I think Talocan was. I like the cultural things, the serpent, thing. I like
The
um,
Kamehameha. I mean, yeah.
the Kamehameha. Yes, I mean I like all that. It did feel kind of. I wasn't quite sure where it was on the map. It kind of felt like they got really lucky finding it. You know what I'm saying? Like you're really good at finding things. Can you find Talocan? And she's like, yeah, I can find it. And it's just like, I don't know if does it feel like Talocan feels huge to you? I don't. It feels like it feels small to me
Who found
because
it?
I can't think of her name. It's a Young's
Oh yeah.
character.
Well, she found it because she talked to that lady, right? It was like, oh, I saw
Well,
him too,
yeah,
and
exactly. But it's like that's it isn't. It made to me feel
I
Talocan
get
feel
it.
easy to find, and also it made it found it It also made it really feel like it was small to me. Like I felt like
Mm.
versus something like there's only obvious comparisons to Aquaman, but like Aquaman and Atlantis felt huge. Like the geography felt big in
Mm.
comparison to
Sure.
Talocan. Wakanda feels big compared to Talocan or
Sure.
Talocan. I don't know. I feel like there were some things they kind of should have done a little better. I think Namor and his I like all of it. I like everything really with him in it. I think he did fine. I
Yeah.
think he did good. He's a good antagonist. I really, overall, I think it was really stupid that the Wakandans go out to sea to fight
Yeah, that
them
didn't make
on
sense
a
to me
boat.
necessarily. I mean, I
It's
guess they're
like,
trying to take the fight away from their people, but yeah.
well, yeah, but then the people are going to M'Baku. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I agree.
where it's snow, and you would theoretically think that snow would also not be the greatest place for the Talcans to go. So it's like it would be kind of hard for them to get there because there's no like immediate body
Yeah.
of water to traverse.
Right.
So I thought that was kind of some dumb decisions there. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's again. I think I liked it. And what's interesting is that Kimberly, she watched the first probably 30 minutes of Black Panther 1. She's probably seen like 3 of the 30 movies, and she's seen none of the Disney Plus movies at all, or Disney Plus shows at all. So she's like just a general
Sure.
audience member in this truest. She liked it. And she's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I liked it. She's like, it was fun. It was entertaining. And I'm over here
And I
like
think it
I'm over here
was,
crying like a
I don't,
baby. So
yeah, I mean, I
like
don't think I was ever bored, and I just think, here's the thing with this movie, I think at the end of the day for me, is that I really respect and enjoy what this movie was going for. It wasn't successful all the time. And sometimes the plot got in its own way, or it was just, there was a lot going on in this movie. But when it does work, for me, it really worked. And again, what they were going for is such a breath of fresh air to me in the MCU, just in terms of even beyond the grief, like this world felt like it was taking itself seriously again. Everyone in this world felt like we're all serious about this world, and it's not a joke. It's not something we take in light. It just felt again like old MCU in some ways that I've missed. And I do think what they were doing
part of
with
that
the
feels
grief.
part of that. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Part of that feels like me. It's like when the government jacks up. It's like gas is 250. The government jacks up to 350, and we're like, damn, the gas is high. And then it's like, oh, now it's back down to $3. We're like, oh man, this is great. Like gas is so cheap now. It's like, well, it was
Okay,
250.
yeah, I mean, sure,
I'm saying?
but
Like,
I mean, and so maybe in hindsight, that context won't matter as much. Maybe in watching in a year or two, it won't feel the same way. But I think for me, at the end of the day, what pushes this movie at least into the light category is what they were trying to do with grief. And I think trying to, because this movie is doing a lot of meta things with that.
It is
And
pretty
I
interesting.
think that is kind of unprecedented in a way. Like in a way, this movie was
It's
about the
interesting.
grief that people are experiencing when they're watching the movie. Even I mean, like, even just to end with that like montage of like paintings of Chadwick, or like towards the end of the movie when they did that, which they hadn't shown his face like really depicted at all much before then, or they had that or I mean, oh my god, the opening with only Chadwick clips.
It's the
Oh my
lack of music,
god.
which is pretty great.
It's so, and I think it matches the end, which has like zero music. Yeah, I just think there's something there. When it hits in a way that like not a lot of things ever like. It's kind of feels unique to me, I guess, and just a unique situation with Chadwick and this character and the MCU and all of this.
You're not
That
wrong. It is
yeah,
super unique in that way, in that it is very meta in the fact that we're, as audience members, we're grieving for an actor who played a character, and then also the characters in the movie are grieving for a character that they, it's like it is really interesting. Don't get me wrong, it is, and honestly, you think about the other version of the movie where it's just where Chadwick didn't pass away, and it was just him versus Wakanda or versus Talocan. It's like
yeah,
it almost feels like the this one is more dynamic, and it's like it's more unique, the grieving one versus the
yeah,
regular one. It is more
yeah,
unique. I get that, and I respect that. I don't know. I'm a crier in movies, 100%. Like I look forward to
sure.
crying in movies. I don't know what it is, but I didn't cry during
Hmm.
Black Panther 2, and I really wanted to. I was kind
The
of
only time
ready
I
to
got a
feel
little
that.
emotional was when the Queen died. I think probably just because it was on screen and it was more like characters
Yeah,
dealing with it in the moment. I think in the beginning when they were trying to kind of like do him dying again, it just felt, because his real death was so long ago now, it just felt a bit manufactured or a bit just kind of okay. But like when, I guess for me, like the peak of it was honestly like doing that montage towards the end of the movie of those like paintings, but then like her sitting on the beach, not the after credit scene, but her before that, and just this moment of like remembering him. Um, yeah, I just think that it felt like this movie was really trying to just be. It's not like it's trying to make some sweeping statements about grief or trying to be this like tie this happy bow on anything. It just feels like it was willing to sit with the grief that these characters were experiencing and let that be on screen. And that's like just a bit more humanity than I'm used to seeing in characters in the MCU, just because it's not the style
Sure.
that the MCU is. It's a stylistic thing. So it's almost like the circumstances of this movie, Chadwick's death and everything, gave them the opportunity to do something that may never even happen again in the MCU. You know what I'm saying?
Sure,
Like this,
and I
this
see
movie
that. Yeah,
becomes in its own way a memorial or a
it is. It is.
you
It's
know
like it's a really unique thing.
it
I do
is.
think that it almost would have been more interesting too, just on a narrative level. It feels like the opening is like Shuri is trying to save T'Challa, right? She's trying to she's trying to
Yeah,
use technology to save him, which also I think, hey, I also appreciated the balls to have science versus religion. Like
yeah.
I appreciated
Mm-hmm.
that. Like, I liked how they kind of towed that line and had different viewpoints. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I didn't like Ramon to come at the very end, like show them who you are. It's like how is it's like having a second ancestral plane moment in the middle of that. I
Sure.
just that didn't feel great, but just because it just I don't know, it just kind of broke continuity a little bit. But I think it almost would have been more important to it feels like things are cooled off. I mean, and I get with the rage thing, but she's making the heart shaped herb to become the Black Panther to fight Namor, right? It almost would have been stronger if she had the opportunity to save somebody, and she makes the heart shaped herb to kind of complete that arc of
Mm.
like she couldn't save her brother then, but maybe she can save, and maybe it would have been smart to have
Sure.
his son, like she saved his son, so she's saving
Yeah.
T'Challa again. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't
Maybe
know.
so.
There's something there. I think that would have been a little smarter. But again, I get the idea of like revenge and that kind of stuff. Um, but it also kind of it's what's interesting too is that it plays some of the beats we had in the previous movie because it's even manufactured that way. When we see Killmonger, which I do appreciate seeing Killmonger in the ancestral plane, which we
Agreed.
were spoiled and like online and Reddit and stuff. It was always kind of like she's going to see him in it, whatever, because it was always rumored he's coming back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, I think that's interesting, but it's like we kind of already had the flavor of like she's gonna burn the world down. Like we had that with Killmonger in the last movie. You know what I'm saying? So it's like
Mm.
it's like they're taking similar beats from the first movie that worked, and like I don't know, it's just I don't know. I still just have mixed feelings over all of it. I
Sure.
really, I mean, I'm telling you, dude, I really want to fucking love this movie, and
Sure.
I thought it was awful when Ramonda died, and I loved M'Baku in it, and
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know, man. I just had this weird, and I think, and maybe it's just part of it too. Is like it just bums me up that Chadwick is, ironically, that he's
Yeah.
gone. It can be the character, which is kind of the point of the movie. So it's kind of like on a
Yeah.
meta level,
Sure.
you're supposed to be fucking upset. And the most emotional I got was at the end when she was probably at the fire burning her,
Mm-hmm.
funeral clothes. And it's like, and I think that's partly by design, but also it makes sense just even like looking at it on a meta level. I've watched and processed the events of these characters, and I've watched and processed a movie without Chadwick Boseman as the Black Panther that I wanted to see originally, and now we're all saying goodbye together. The characters saying goodbye, and the audience is saying goodbye at the same time, and that's when I got the most emotional, which makes sense on all the levels. Um, I do think last two things here. I do think it was really interesting that M'Baku went to the tribal thing. So it seems
Yeah.
like he'll be king, which traditionally the king is the Black Panther in which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a traditional thing, right? That king is Black Panther. And so it's
Yeah.
like, you do wonder who will be Black Panther next. Do you think, I think Shuri was always the bad choice because she's just, you know, she wasn't, it makes more sense for a Okoye or something like that to be even Black Panther versus her. even though she is
Sure.
next in line with the throne. Like I get I get all that. It's the movie they set up. I didn't feel like she was the one that should have done it, but it makes sense that also she does it because she's doing it out of revenge in the moment, and then it's like, well, I did it out of revenge, but now I'm stuck with the powers, even though you could take them
Right.
away. So it's like it's like an inadvertently. I almost don't even know if she planned on getting out alive, kind of thing. But they also do feel like they're going to have their cake and eat it too. They recasted T'Challa without recasting T'Challa, right? We got this sweet scene with T'Challa Jr., T'Challa the second, whatever you want to say. And, I like that. It's like a way of honoring the character. He had he passed on his lineage, that kind of thing. And we'll have another black male character one day become T'Challa. And when at a certain point, he will beat T'Challa for X amount of movies, right? He will be in maybe that first movie will deal with his loss of his dad and that kind of stuff. But that second and third movie, it'll just be like they recasted T'Challa. It'd be like what a lot of us wanted in this movie will happen 10 years from now, right?
Yeah.
It's also kind of weird though that, I don't know if in a million years it's retconning, right? It's like it's having their cake and eat it too. I don't know in a million years that T'Challa Prime would ever want his son to not grow up in Wakanda. Ever.
Yeah.
That makes no fucking sense at all.
Yeah, I agree.
You know what I'm saying? So that stuff like that, it's like, okay, do I like that we're getting T'Challa down the road? Sure. But it's
that's the kind of thing I'm expecting from Disney, where they're just, when it comes to keeping whatever characters they want to keep alive or in a certain place or in a certain state, they just do it without kind of at some point, they just stop caring about if it works at a plot level versus if it does what we want it to do. It feels like
sure,
sometimes.
and that's the thing is that again we're sitting here not getting paid. I think there might be it would have been more. I mean, I see the thing. It's like, okay, there's a sweetness to knowing that T'Challa met his son. There's a sweetness. Yeah. There's also a reality that she got pregnant, and the snap happened, and then when he comes back, he dies, and he never got a chance to meet his son.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so she's outside of Wakanda when the snap happens, raises a kid that's 5 or 6 years old. You know what I'm saying? And it's like you still get T'Challa Jr. being T'Challa someday, but then you get the reality of what actually more likely would have happened, which is that, you know what I'm saying? I just don't it's like when making these decisions for convenience sake. And it's like, well, sometimes it's okay to have characters cry on screen for 2 minutes where there's no music. That's what's real.
Yeah. I mean, I think what there's just so many cooks in all the kitchens now. I think is what it is. There's just so many cooks in all the kitchens, I mean,
I know what it is. I just think that it's just not the correct way of doing things. I can nitpick every single MC movie like this, period. There's not a single one I think it's probably just perfect. But it's just one of those things I don't know. And people are going to think I'm super hard on this movie, and I am a little hard on it. Again, it's not the movie I think they should have made. But
sure,
I'm still going to buy it, and I'm still going to watch it a lot more before I die.
Of course.
So I am the problem at the same time.
It will be interesting to see how this movie ages. What this movie feels like to watch in a year or two. Even more.
Well, also what's really interesting is what's the next movie going to be.
Yeah,
because one thing I've always, a lot of times the sequels aren't as good as the origin movies. That happens a lot. But one thing as a kid, and I still feel this way now, is I always wanted to get past the origin stuff. I wanted, I wanted that movie. That movie was necessary, but I wanted the movie where they're Black Panther or they're Spider-Man the whole time, and they're kicking ass the whole time, and they're dealing with problems the whole time. That's Spider-Man or whatever. It's like, you want the opening scene to be Black Panther versus, you don't want to, wait 2 hours and 20 minutes to get Black Panther finally. So that, I think we had 2 origins back to back now, and we never, I never got. And to be fair, Black Panther 1 kind of got to skip the origin in a lot of ways, And they
Yeah.
kind of started from the get go. We kind of had a little bit in Civil War, but even then they kind of skipped it in Civil War too. Like it was like it's one of the few cases they got away with it almost. And it works totally. But I'm curious to what Black Panther 3 is.
Me too.
Obviously, they're already having conversations with Ryan Coogler about it. We know that Ironheart will be a direct sequel to that, which people are saying it like it's a direct sequel to Wakanda Forever. It's like, well, everything's a direct sequel to everything prior to the MCU. So I don't know what you're too excited about. But so we'll get Ironheart in her own TV show, which I'm hoping will flesh her out in a positive way and kind of give the things I was missing. I have a hard time liking the character just on a base level because I just don't think it's a necessary character, but I'm hoping they can turn me around in a positive way. And then I'm hoping that I don't know where Namor is going to appear next. I'm curious. I feel like he almost
probably. I mean, it could be the next. I mean, it could be Kang before he's honestly around again. Like, some sort of worldwide threat.
Thunderbolts could be. It almost feels like Thunderbolts are going to invade Wakanda for vibranium, almost. So I don't know. It could be which would feel a little the same, but Thunderbolts could be Team Thunderbolts versus Wakanda and Talocan teamed up together.
It'd be interesting.
Like it's one of those things like, in their benefit, Chadwick Boseman would be like the hardest one to get right for that movie, and like now it's like you're now you to get Shuri, M'Baku, and all the side characters and Namor.
Yeah,
it's like these guys aren't as expensive. Even now, there's no way they're as expensive as Chadwick Boseman was in Black Panther 1.
Right.
There's no way their salary is the same. So it's like you can get those guys for a Thunderbolts movie now. And to be fair, they got everybody for Captain America Civil War movie. They did that already. But it's like it's just even easier in that sense. So I don't know. I'm curious to what they do with it. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I feel like there's just so much unknown in the MCU right now, just because we're all kind of barreling towards Kang with Quantumania and just whatever's after that. I just think the MCU is in just a very interesting place where it's kind of hard to see exactly. I mean, like obviously we know they're just going for more content, so we're just expecting more. But like to know kind of how will this universe feel in a couple of years? It's hard to say. It feels like we're kind of in a moment of flux for the MCU, and will it find its footing again and kind of find consistency again, or will it kind of continue struggling to meet the mark in some ways? I don't know. And I feel like, I don't know, that all could change what we actually get as far as phase whatever is after phase 6 and 7. Like you wouldn't, I can't imagine seeing Black Panther movie before then, and like how the next phase goes, even just commercially and critically and fan basely. I think that could change a lot of what the phases look like after that. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm super curious. I mean, obviously we had another tee up with Namor saying he's a mutant. Obviously, we're getting more mutant.
Yeah, which was
stuff.
a little weird and felt shoehorned, because I was like, how would you know that? Like, why is that word what you know what I mean? It's just like, okay.
I think in the like comic wise, like publication wise, he was the first mutant ever publicate, because he's like one of the first characters ever in Marvel Comics is Namor. So like I think that way he was like, but I think the first ever mutant is Apocalypse, I think. But so like it made, when he said I'm the first mutant or whatever, or not first, I'm a mutant, that was kind of a callback also to me, is like, well, he's like the first mutant to ever appeared in comics, so like, but I agree, it's a weird phrase to say when it's not a thing. It's like saying like, I don't know. It's like I'm white, and then no one had ever said the word white ever to describe my ethnicity before.
Yeah, it just feels like they're just throwing that word in any chance. Like it just feels like they keep using that word without even defining what that word is, other than X-Men. And I feel like it's starting just to feel a little like you can just throw that thing around and it doesn't, you don't have to explain it, or like you're not. I guess it's just a tease that's starting to feel a little old until we like actually get something.
It is. That's the thing too. Is I've never been a huge X Men guy. I'm a big Wolverine guy, but I've never been a huge X Men
I like
guy. So
X-Men.
it's like, yeah. So I'm still like, well, unless they, I like the movies, like some of them, obviously, but even then, I'm not like it's not the same for me as like Spider Man or something. But real
Sure.
quick, I will say this: we have Guardians Holiday Special, which is coming,
Hmm.
a couple weeks, really, a month or so. And that will be the true end of Phase 4, even though they're saying Wakanda Forever is.
Sure.
And then we start with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. So, yeah, I just think these movies. I look at every single one of these and I think the same thing. It's like the trailers always get me. Like Doctor Strange, I'm like, and I do like Doctor Strange. I like all these movies, but I thought Doctor Strange would be like the one. I thought it'd be like the
Hmm.
next one. That's like I can't stop thinking about or talking about, or I can't go
See
watch
it
enough.
multiple times. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, to be fair, my living situation has changed. I would sell Black Panther like 3 times already if I was somewhere
Sure.
else. But Doctor Strange, it didn't hit the things that we wanted to hit, even though I still enjoy it. Thor didn't hit the things that I think we wanted to hit, even though I still
Hmm.
enjoy it. And Black Panther probably hit more in line with what I was expecting, and I still like it. I have problems with it, of course, but like, it still didn't like blow me away like some of these things. And I see the Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania trailer, and I know Peyton Reed, and like he has done some bangers with like Luke Skywalker and Star Wars and Mandalorian, and he's Ant-Man 1 and 2 are still solid movies.
Hmm.
And I just like, man, now he's got Kane the Conqueror, and I see that trailer and I see that blue mask. I'm like, whew, maybe this
Yep.
is the one. Maybe it's the
Yep.
one. Maybe it's I don't
Sure.
know. Maybe it's the one. But then we have Guardians in May, I think, of next year, which that will be the one. Like he hasn't disappointed us.
Yeah, that's one you feel like you can bank on just because James Gunn was in control and he probably still had a pretty blank check making that as far as like he can do what he wants. Like
Yeah.
he has a lot more freedom than most directors would seem to have. Maybe Ryan Coogler is one that could rival him, Taika Waititi. But yeah, I feel like that one feels like just a shoe in for being more James Gunn Guardians, which is so far not disappointed. So
Yeah, and we'll get some of that again in a couple of weeks with the Christmas special. And I think even though I had my own issues with like the humor sometimes in those movies,
sure.
they still hit. Peacemaker still hits. Suicide Squad still fucking hits. Guardians 1,
Exactly.
2 still fucking hit. So it's like
Exactly. It's
I have no question about Guardians 3. And also, it
yeah.
I have no expectation that it's tied to the larger universe because none of them have ever been tied to the larger universe. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? It's like Ant-Man expectation for the MCU is high, but Guardians,
Yeah.
it's like a safety net. It's like, okay,
Well,
I
it's
know
like a
my
swan
expectation.
song for this
Yes.
characters too. So we know this is
Yeah.
like the movie's about them.
Yeah.
Very very focusedly. So
Anyway, I'm really hoping Phase 4. I mean, just look at the list. I just don't see a lot of bangers that I'm just super excited for. And you have Secret, like even looking at television, What If Season 2, who gives a fuck? Secret Invasion, trailer looks good, but also like, who cares? Echo, who gives a fuck? Daredevil will be in it, but like, who cares? Loki Season 2 might be
sure.
kind of cool, with like Kang and all that kind of stuff. But even then, Season 1 didn't like. I say that like we talked a lot about Season 1, how great some of the episodes were, but it still wasn't the show I wanted. Ironheart, as of right now, I don't care.
Sure.
Agatha, Coven of Chaos. Who fucking asked for that? Maybe we did. I don't know. Maybe I literally said on the podcast. I can't wait to have a TV show of her. But it's like, do I want her over like some other character? Probably.
Sure.
And of course, Daredevil. Of course, I want that one. But just and Spider-Man hasn't been announced that, which will be probably pretty soon next year. But I'm kind of feeling just like
There's not a
this.
lot of bangers in the horizon. Like
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Secret Wars will be,
Yeah.
hopefully
But
good.
that only
Like I
works
said, I
if
mean,
these other ones
the MCU's in kind of a new place for them, which is like they're not being not necessarily new. They've not always been universally loved and received well, but it's new as of the past few years, and it's new that even what you might consider diehard fans have been a bit uh, dissatisfied with their output. So
Yeah.
when you're starting to lose your diehard fans, your ride or dies, something's not quite going right. And
Yeah.
so, like I said, I think we're at kind of a pivotal moment where we've got these next few movies that are basically done and coming out, and they're big. And what if they are more Doctor Strange like, Thor like receptive movies? What if they are that? I mean, you could see that having an impact on strategy moving forward after that. Maybe they regroup, maybe they stop, maybe they pull the plug on all these mountains of content and say, okay, wait, hold up, we gotta redo this or do something different. I don't know. Or if they hit and in 2 months, if we've just gotten 3 or 4 months, we've just finished watching Guardians 3 and Ant-Man and Wasp was a banger, then this then the MCU feels totally different. You know what I mean? So I
Yeah.
think these next couple movies are going to guide a lot of just kind of the zeitgeist opinion on
I
the
think you're right.
MCU and how much are we tired of superhero movies. I mean, we're getting on to like 20 years soon of like just almost constant superhero movies. I
Yeah.
mean, it can't go on at that rate forever. You know what I'm saying? It just it's not.
Hopefully it can.
I don't. There's not enough people that will stay interested that long, like for decades upon decades upon decades, to be producing at the level and the rate they are now. So yeah, I mean,
It is wild.
we're at
Like
an
Black
interesting
Panther,
point in the age of heroes, as you say, when we talk about cinema.
the heroic age of cinema, as I
The
call
heroic
it.
age of cinema. I'm sorry. We're at an interesting age. We've been here for a while. It's been going strong. We may have peaked, and I feel like we're about to see if she's got a second wind in her. And I think how maybe even how some of the DC things take place with James Gunn and these guys in control. Like, how does that start going for them over the next couple of years? Do they start finding some footing? Will this do we have another decade in the age of heroes? I don't know. It'll be
Dude, I
interesting to
was
watch it
sitting
play out.
there, I was daydreaming on my drive from the gym today. Like, what would I do in the final moments of like Infinite Crisis on Infinite Earth, like
Sure.
crossover events? Like, I was writing scenes in my head of like Superman and Lex Luthor and like all these things. I was just like, God damn, that'd be cool. I'm just like thinking
The
like,
good thing is we have
oh,
plenty
this
of time, because if like James Gunn and them are basically resetting everything, then like
again.
it's going to take a while to get there. So no worry, no rush.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, maybe. But like Black Adam, didn't. Like, it's funny. Like the opening weekend of Black Panther worldwide is like already more than the entire sum of Black Adam. Which is like
It's got a
crazy.
built-in audience that
It
is going to be
does, but
very faithful to it.
I mean, Black Adam costs twice as much as Shazam, has half the Rotten Tomato score, and it's made. I think it might make like 6 million more when it's all said and done than Shazam. I could have swore I saw somewhere a month ago where they had a Chinese release, but now I'm seeing conflicting reports. So I don't
Hmm.
know. That Chinese release, I think it would obviously help it, but if they don't get
Oh
that,
yeah.
then I'm really worried for it. Which I wonder now if like will Black Adam even get a sequel? Like I don't know. And like that's the thing. I'm more excited next year about Shazam and um, the Flash than I am anything Marvel's. But maybe not Guardians, but I don't know. I just again, there's just less room for error on DC side in terms of like
Well, there's
disappointing
less
me because
expectations. There's less
yeah, because they're
expectations.
exactly, yeah. So I'm curious. I'm very curious. Uh, can I real quick? Since we've now
Sure.
officially watched every single superhero movie that's going to come out this year. We have. What's the best? What's your favorite? Mine is still the Batman. It wasn't
Everything, everywhere, all at once. Best one.
best superhero movie.
Got a lot of superhero
Daniel.
elements to it. Um, I need to look at the list.
We have the Batman, and we have Black Adam on the DC side. Then we have Thor, Doctor Strange, Black Panther.
Whew. It's not a great list.
You don't like the Batman? I mean, the Batman, while it has its problems, is still a solid
It's an
movie.
interesting movie. I have like no desire to ever watch it again. It's just
Are you
like
serious?
not.
Really? Wow.
I mean, I watch it again, but it's like I watch it
I don't
again
remember you being that.
and have to like not it just like it's like fine. I watch again. That's really pretty. That plot is really bad in, and it's like that's hard to
I don't
motivate me to
remember.
watch for.
I don't remember you being that volatile in our review. You know what I'm saying? Like I remember
I
you
mean,
being. Maybe it's just time has gotten
it's
to
just
you.
so forgettable to me that movie
Wow.
because of the plot issues.
I almost watched it last night.
I like the stylistic movies. I like cinematography, but to me, plot is king. And if you fuck that up, then
Sure.
it's going to be
But
hard to
did,
get me hooked.
but
And
did
want
they
to come
fuck it
back.
up more than all the other Marvel movies?
My expectations were higher. That's probably part of it too. It's Batman. You know, it's
Really? Wow.
well, if I'm going to watch a Batman movie and I want a good plot, I'm not going to watch that movie. If I want Batman, I'm not craving that Batman ever. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the kind of thing of like I would watch not any other Batman, but like of course Christian Bale. If I'm craving Batman, I'm going Christian Bale because those movies are phenomenal. You know, I'm not going to pick this movie
Yeah.
if I'm craving Batman. You know,
Wow. No, I get it. I mean, but let's just focus on
and I
this
think that's
year.
part of it too. Is like it is like you know, Thor was rough, but none of the Thor movies have been fantastic. You know, like
You don't think? Yeah.
Ragnarok's great, but it's not like Ragnarok's great kind of on its own, like because it's a Taika movie and it's like got a good mix of humor and heart and all these kinds of things. I just think,
Sure.
you know, when I'm watching a Batman movie, there's so much history with that character. Like, if you're gonna come at me with another Batman, then you like gotta come at me and like make it worth it because this character's big and like I have a lot of like I guess like personal history with the character of like
Sure.
it
Yeah, I
almost
get it.
makes it like it more egregious that it missed on some like of these areas because it's like come on guys like you know anyway
Okay, so I mean, so out of the, yeah, I mean, yeah, still, so my question still stands.
the movie that's going to sit with me longest and stay with me longest is probably Black Panther just because of the grief things that it does that are so unique. I mean like Thor I had big problems with.
Yep.
Doctor Strange was cool at times, but still not great. Black Adam was a fun superhero movie. It's probably second or
Isn't that
third.
wild?
You know what I mean? It probably
Isn't
is.
that wild that Black Panther
Yeah,
Black Adam
yeah.
is second? You
Or
like Black
third.
Adam
Yeah,
more than the
it's top
Batman?
three.
Jesus Christ, what's wrong with you?
I had more
That's
fun.
okay.
I had more fun
Sure.
watching Black Adam than I had watching the Batman. Batman
Sure.
was not a fun movie for me. Just because I kept getting disappointed.
It was really only the end that disappointed me, which is a big part, which is an
You're right,
absolutely
but, like,
huge part.
the movie was
But it was-
building to that. And so it makes everything that it came before it feel so like
I'm going to go
ugh.
back tonight and I'm going to watch our podcast so I can watch your initial reactions.
But hey, listen, maybe I've
I would
soured
love-
on it more than I had at the beginning. But like
Yeah, I
and
think
maybe that's
I
just
would
because
love
of
to
like
break
how
that one down.
little I think about it. And when it does come up, when I see a post or something about it, it just annoys me.
Well,
it's
I
just
think
like, that
even though
movie, and I just like scroll.
even though we lost our Dark Knight Rises,
Yeah,
podcast, I still I love the idea of us doing the Batman someday. Maybe
yeah,
with Bruce, like I think that would be
absolutely.
fun.
It would be an
It's not-
interesting one to do there, just because of honestly, the problems will give us a lot to talk about.
It will be, yeah. And I mean, I don't think it's complicated at all. I
No.
just think that it's not complicated at all.
Egregiously uncomplicated, I might say.
Yeah.
For a Riddler plot.
Yeah, exactly. Like the Dark Knight's way more complicated than that was, but also because it doesn't really have answers for its questions. But yeah, I would love to bring it out. Anyway, how can our listeners write into us?
Listeners, you can write into bit.ly/241mail. Let us know what you thought of the Black Panther Wakanda Forever movie. Did you like it? Were you more with me? Were you kind of you connected with some of the more serious parts and that kind of let you overlook maybe some of the rougher edges, or maybe were you with Donovan with more mixed feelings, more frustration? Let us know. bit.ly/241mail.
Yeah, just looking at my letterbox here, I don't think Black Panther's in my top 10, honestly. I think it goes back. I mean, DC's winning this year, Batman, Black Adam, then Doctor Strange, I think. And I think probably Black Panther would be 4 out of 5. Yeah. Um, wow, that's disappointing. This year, I
Yeah,
mean, even though like
yeah.
there's some movies I like this year, but this year hasn't really been a super strong year for movies. Like it's not
It
super
had
strong.
like I mean
Blockbuster
I think
wise.
everywhere everything everywhere all at once is one of the best movies I've seen in a long time.
Yeah,
For
that's
me,
that's my
that's like
third one.
as an indie movie, especially. Like I think it's phenomenal. But I agree. I feel like the year has not just had a. For one, it doesn't feel like a ton of movies, maybe, or at least a ton of movies that have been like
Yeah,
gotten much buzz or talked or like, I
sure.
feel like we're not hearing about like even at the, maybe there's they're probably still mostly coming out, but like those big Academy Award winning
Yeah.
Oscar bait type you know
Oh, I
Spielberg
can't wait to
movies
watch The
or
Fablemans yet. Like I'm
yeah.
dying to watch it, dude. Have you seen Nope yet?
Yes, actually, Catherine and I watched it the other night.
Real quick, give me your thoughts. I know this is Black Panther, but I want
No,
give
you're
me give
fine.
me
Yeah,
2 minutes. Give me 2 minutes.
weird movie.
Really?
The stakes are weird for me. Like trying to take a picture, but basically, once the movie reveals what's actually going on, it like loses all tension for me. Like once it
Hmm.
reveals that it's a monster and it's like just sucking people up and eating them or whatever, like I feel like it lost all of like what kept me really hooked on it. Um, it didn't like just like even just the stakes of like it doesn't feel like they're reacting how anyone would feasibly really react to like a living alien
Yeah,
living
like
above
their
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 farm.
their their willingness to keep going forward, I guess. Is that what you're
Yeah,
talking
like
about?
they just seems very nonchalant at times, like
Yeah.
what's going on, and then like it just feels like the movie, like it's that moment where they like leave, they get out, and they're like eating at that like restaurant or whatever, and they're like, "Let's
Yeah,
go
yeah.
back." Like, and it just feels like no one would choose to go back. Everyone would be like, "We're getting the fuck out. We're running to the FBI. We're caught."
Sure.
Like, I feel like that. It just felt like the characters didn't feel very realistic to me in those ways.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Yeah. I feel like
Visually
Destiny calls
stunning
sometimes. Right.
kind of way. I mean, like I just visually, I thought it was like really like done well, and just like the shots were good. I thought,
I love the idea of like it being this UFO movie that was, I thought there's some really good like build up to that. Then it turned into like a kaiju movie at the end of it. And this really weird ethereal alien. Like I liked it. I liked how that was going, and I don't know. I really did enjoy it a lot. I think it may be my
it wasn't scary at all,
no, it wasn't.
at all. Like there wasn't even like
No,
jump scares really.
the only one is like when you see the aliens in the barn, which is the kids. That was pretty creepy at first, but it quickly
Oh
dissolved
yeah, but
like
then you realize, yeah,
on
yeah,
purpose.
exactly. And they're like, oh, they're not real. Yeah, yeah, yeah. At that point, I
Yeah,
was like, this feels like signs or something, like
yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
like. But yeah, that was creepy. And then like the one time when you see that lady, and then the whole fucking monkey thing just felt left field to me. Like it didn't feel like it connected enough to me.
Well,
Like
it's all about
Wild Beast.
spectacle. It's all about the whole movie is about spectacle and like our humans to our detriment is that we're always chasing spectacle and like how that can backfire on you sometimes.
And the
Like
monk, like using a monkey in a sitcom is chasing spectacle.
yeah, well, it's yeah, part of it. Well, part of it is yeah, like not using the monkey, but like yeah, part of that is that the audience is using a monkey to achieve something and a thing. But I think also part of it too is like the popping of the balloon and like I'll go into this another time, but it's all tied. It's in
Interesting.
the quote. It's in the quote of the opening of the movie. It's like about spectacle, but that's what the movie's supposed to be about, and that's what the you can. Jordan Peele has plenty of videos, I'm sure, about where he breaks it down for you. But anyway,
Yeah,
I
it didn't.
enjoyed
It
it.
didn't
I would
fully
love
connect to
to.
me. I didn't. I
Sure.
didn't. I thought it was maybe just a little bit unclear if that was really what I was trying to say. But yeah.
Well, it's not, it's even it's that, and it's also the fact that the event of the monkey going crazy, like people publicize that the guy that gets the cowboy guy who gets sucked up into it who owns the ranch, he like has a whole room dedicated to this event that actually was pretty traumatic for him, but he is putting it on a pedestal to cover up his pain or to get people enticed for other things. Like he's putting spectacle, above his trauma. You know what I'm saying? Like that was
Sure.
that's kind of another way of looking at it.
I guess to me it's just like I don't like the character that like the guy that played. He was from The Walking Dead is what I remembered him from.
That's what I'm talking about. The guy, who put it, yeah.
Yeah. I guess I feel like just specifically, we just kept going back to the monkey event so often that I thought that was going to play a more pivotal part in like the plot reveal, or like
sure.
did the aliens mind control the monkey and the aliens talked to him under the table as the monkey? Like that's seriously like what I was trying to figure. Like that's where my mind was going, trying to like make it make sense why we kept coming back here. And I didn't think it paid off enough to make like it felt like they kept going there. Like the fact that the monkey did that or why it did that was important, or the fact that the monkey spared the kid, and like it just felt like they revealed that whole scene throughout the entire film. You know what I mean? We took the whole movie to see exactly what happened, like kind of bit by bit. And they would pan in so slowly and deliberately and creepily. It just felt like, oh, this is going to be like the reason the aliens are here somehow. I was like, I couldn't figure it out. And then, So.
No, it makes total sense. I was curious your thoughts on it. I'm sure we could talk about it more. We might ask, whenever we have Bruce on next, we'll ask him because he has some really strong thoughts about him disliking it.
He does.
Yeah. Of course, you can hit our bit.ly, bit.ly/triple1 or you can also catch us in the comment section below, youtube.com/triple1 studios, the best place to consume the content. Last week, we had Garrett Tuggle on to talk Lord of the Rings of Power from Amazon, and just also Tolkien in general. I'm not quite sure our next podcast, what it will be about, but I'm sure it'll be something
Is Andor
enticing. Yeah, I don't think so.
I think it's like 12 episodes, right?
Yeah, I think it's a long one. I don't 100% know.
We're in this weird place. We just had like an over, like a dump of content. From everywhere.
So the week after next is Andor. So I don't really know what next week one will be. We'll figure it out. We'll think of something. But anyway, my name is Donovan Thompson.
I'm Daniel Wingfield.
And we have spoken.